so much. That was wonderful. So we're going to go on to our next speaker, who is Leigh Touchton. Leigh is the fourth term president of the Valdosta Lowndes County NAACP branch. And she is a former biology professor at Valdosta State University. The civil rights campaigns at the Valdosta Lowndes County branch include one, justice for Willie James Williams, whose death in Lowndes County Jail was ruled a homicide. 2, the Georgia Supreme Court case over free speech at city council meetings. And 3, living wages for staff at Valdosta State University. So we're happy to have Leigh, who will be speaking about her work around the biomass incinerator issues in Valdosta. So let me just move this.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm going to come around front if I can. Frederick Douglass was asked by someone, what could he do to change things in his community? And his reply was, agitate, agitate, agitate. And I think I was born to do this role, much to the dismay of my husband, who recently got fired over something I wrote about the biomass plant. But not to worry, he's a partner in a law firm, and he just got fired by a bank. And evidently, his law firm is still handling all the work, and Rob's doing the work, but they have a face man. And so as soon as it dies down, Rob, I'm sure, will come back to work for the bank. But what we've done in Valdosta to fight a biomass plant, which has been cited for construction in a predominantly black community, what we've done is basically a multi-pronged approach, but the NAACP has been at the forefront with agitation. And this has allowed another group, which is the more moderate environmental upper middle class group, to be the group that the power brokers want to do business with because the NAACP is making it so hot for them in Valdosta. So we used a multi-pronged approach. We started with the traditional go to the EPA hearings, register your displeasure with an incinerator being cited for your community. We got all that on the record. Started a letter writing campaign. We wrote to the newspapers, we wrote to the government, we wrote to all the school boards. We attended all the city council meetings, we attended all the county commission meetings, we had numerous speakers, and of course, as I knew, but the moderate group of upper middle class professionals just couldn't believe that they would go in there and say, you know, I can show you all this information and da-da-da-da-da, it's so totally true that this is a bad idea for our community. They seriously thought that they could go in there and just present it and that these people in power would automatically say, oh, you're right, we're not going to do that. And I kept telling them, you're going to have to ratchet up the pressure, you're going to have to ratchet up the pressure, and they didn't believe me. Well, finally, when the county commissioner threatened to arrest the president of the environmental group for daring to come in and speak at his county commission meeting, then they believed me. So when the wet time comes, the NAACP is everybody's daddy, and they came running to me, help, help, I'm being threatened with arrest at the county commission meeting. So I immediately got on the phone to the state NAACP, President Edward DuBose is our state president. He's been wonderfully supportive of the efforts of the Valdosta branch to fight this incinerator. I got on the phone to the ACLU through our contacts with NAACP, and I got on the phone with the Attorney General's office, and I used the NAACP name over and over and over, and it caused so much rattling of sabers and pressure being put on the county commission that at the very next county commission, they came out into the audience and apologized to the president of the other group. So that's the power of the NAACP. And then all of a sudden, this county commissioner that had threatened to arrest the man is now our strongest public ally. And so do they come to the NAACP and say, oh, thank you, what you did was wonderful? Oh, of course not, but we continue to plug along. So other groups that helped us were Meg Sheehan of the Biomass Accountability Project, Mike Ewell at Energy Justice, Dr. Bill Sammons, who's a national speaker and a pediatrician on the effects of biomass on children, lung disease, heart disease, cancer rates. They all came to Valdosta. They've all helped us tremendously. Also, Carl Ross at Save America's Forest. And he basically got me to write a national letter to Congress on how these biomass plants are being targeted specifically for African American communities. In Georgia, 75% of them are targeted for communities of color, and they're not always communities that are lower income. In Valdosta, it is the richest black community that's been targeted, the richest and the oldest, where the most black professionals live and work. That's been targeted with this thing coming in. Valdosta already has a black infant mortality rate that's twice as high as the white infant mortality rate. And according to Dr. Sammons and other health professionals, these biomass incinerators are one of the leading causes of asthma, as well as cancer, stroke, heart disease, and other problems. So I got on the radio and started basically explaining all the statistics that Jackie's already mentioned about how African Americans are 3 times more likely to enter the emergency room. African American males, I believe, are twice as likely to die from asthma as white males, and said these things over and over and over on our local radio station. Went in and advocated and agitated at all of our county commission and city council meetings, wrote letters, and was shocked to find that most of the politicians, regardless of expertise from the American Heart Association, the American Lung Association, numerous high-powered doctors and medical associations, regardless of all that information, what they would tell me point blank was, well, the EPA said it was okay, so it can't be bad. So we went to the EPA over and over and over, and we asked for help because this was a clear sign of environmental racism and that they needed to do something, At one of these EPA hearings, I met Dr. Robert Bullard at Clark Atlanta University. And he got interested in our struggle, and he plugged in the numbers for Georgia, and he found those statistics that I just mentioned to you, that 75% of these biomass incinerators have been cited for a community of color. The other thing he was able to find was that the other 25% have been cited for poor white communities. And so then we went back to all these politicians, and I had this wonderful paper from Dr. Robert Bullard. And the black politicians in town may not know much about climate justice or environmental justice, but they recognized Clark Atlanta University and they recognized Robert Bullard. And when I came back to them with that, suddenly it changed overnight and they became one of our allies. We also had an experience where the environmental group went to the Georgia Sierra Club and asked for some help in the form of a letter, and couldn't get anywhere. And then I approached Georgia Sierra Club and asked for some help and basically got stonewalled. So finally, the National Sierra Club had a national forum and people were allowed to put their comments. And I said, look, I'm the president of the Valdosta NAACP, and I came to you to ask for help regarding an environmental justice situation. And I got stonewalled. In fact, the person told me that they were all volunteers and that I should hire an attorney. And I was like, well, what do you think we are? We're all volunteers. So I wrote this very strongly worded letter, and literally within days, we got a letter from Georgia Sierra, which we were able to share with the Valdosta newspaper and with all of the politicians. And so this carried weight with the, let's say, the middle-class white professionals who were saying, oh, NAACP, they're just a bunch of agitators. Well, all of a sudden, here's like the national most respected environmental group on our side, and then they said, okay, we've got to work with them. So basically, we think we have ended it. The only thing that's left is to put the final nail in the coffin, that this thing is going to go out with a whimper, not with a bang. They're never going to admit that we had any success in this. They're just basically going to say it was market forces that did away with it. We were instrumental in getting rid of the executive director of the Industrial Authority. Unfortunately, if there's anybody here from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, that's where he went. And one of our allies, who's the first black member of the Industrial Authority, has now been promoted to chair of the Industrial Authority, and he highly respects Dr. Robert Bullard. So we're hopeful that anything in the future will protect our communities of color in Valdosta. Thank you so much.